Welcome patrons! So far Ferelden has been the heart of the Dragon Age series, and most fans cite this as one of their favorite nations. Hell, out of all the nations that people ask me to make videos on, I mostly get asked about Ferelden. So, put on your furs and prepare for some wet dog stank, and let's take a trip to the Kingdom of Ferelden. Spelling. So this is more for my own sanity, but let's talk about how Ferelden is spelled. Ferelden with an EN is the name of the country. Ferelden with an AN is the... Shit, I'm so bad with grammar. But the word to use when something is from Ferelden. So, an example. This Mabari is from Ferelden, so he is a Ferelden Mabari. Dragon Age Origins is set in Ferelden, and this is my Ferelden Warden Kuslin. Which, BioWare, this is the worst! Why would you do this? I was so confused for so long! History. As the history of Ferelden is deeply tied to the human tribes, let's have a quick history lesson on those human tribes. The first known human tribe were called the Neomenians and were first mentioned by the ancient elves in Theda's history in -3100 ancient. This tribe would then split off into 4 kingdoms: Quinarius, Tevinter, Neomenian, and Barandur. Barandur completely disappeared, but eventually Tevinter drew in Neomenia and Quinarius to make one large country again. I can't find the exact source for this, but apparently the people known as the Alamari split away from the second Neomenians, and while this part is unknown, we do know at the very least that the Alamari did come from this, I guess, general batch of humans. Anyway, this group, the Alamari, traveled down into what is now known as Ferelden, and settled there around -2415 ancient, and they're the ones who named it Fertile Valley in their language, which is Ferelden. Now, the Alamari are not one tribe, but rather a collective name for a bunch of tribes. 3 of these tribes have been named: the Avar, the Chastened, and the Clane. The Avar live in the hills and the Frostback Mountains, the Chastened have claimed the swamps near the Kukari Wilds, and the Clane would eventually become the majority of the Ferelden people. Anyway, back to Ferelden history. So for a long time, the land of Ferelden was in constant war, either between the different tribes themselves or outside nations like the Tevinter Imperium and Orlais. This would be the cycle of Ferelden, with various people trying to unite the nation's various tribes, but no one quite succeeding. That is, until Calenhad Theron. Perhaps best known for being an honorable man, Calenhad had united most of the nation by the Exalted Age, about 400 years before the start of the game, and thus began the Theron line. Now, I should say that the Avar and the Chastened declined to be a part of this new nation, which is why they are not officially considered Fereldans. Eventually, in the early Blessed Age, about 100 years before the start of Dragon Age Origins, Orlais invades and actually conquers Ferelden. Rightful heir of the Ferelden throne, Moria Theron, then begins to collect an army to oppose the Orlesians, but she was soon betrayed by her own generals. Her son, Merrick Theron, is able to survive this event thanks to the help of a commoner named Loghain. For the most part, the rest of this is detailed in the novel The Stolen Throne, but the obvious ending is that Merrick and Loghain are able to free Ferelden at the very beginning of the Dragon Age, 30 years before the first game is set. And thus, the Theron line is back in order and Merrick Theron is the king. Until 925 Dragon, when he is lost at sea and his son Cailan takes the throne. Geography. In Ferelden, to the west are the Frostback Mountains, which are said to be rich in lyrium and has been mined by the Doors of Orzammar for centuries. To the south are the Kukari Wilds, which is just a lovely swamp area. The Benorn area is known to be where most of the farming happens, although the Hinterlands has a large farming community as well. The Brazilian forest seems to be mostly unclaimed by humans, but many Dalish elves roam around the area. The 2 biggest cities include the capital of Denerim, where the ruler Ferelden resides, and Redcliffe Village, which Calenhad once famously said that the fate of Redcliffe is the fate of all Ferelden, describing how Ferelden has never fallen as long as this village still stands. Lake Calenhad is one of the largest lakes in Thedas, and many cultures have their own mythology behind it. The Avar are said to believe that it was once the spot where Belinas, the mountain which their god Korth stood on, was before being destroyed by a great serpent. Or a dragon. That's a whole video for another day, though. Early Tevinters are said to believe that the waters were blessed by the old god of mystery Razakale, and anyone who drinks from its waters are to be blessed with insight, which explains why the circle tower is in the middle of it. Fereldans have their own mythology about the lake, saying that Calenhad made armor from its waters, one cup becoming one link in a chainmail armor, and that this armor protected him as long as he stayed on Ferelden soil. Politics. To start, let's go over how basic Ferelden politics work. Ferelden is unique in that its politics work from the ground up. Land is owned by freeholders. These freeholders will then swear allegiance to a Bann or an Arl, which really depends on who is closer to them at the time, and the one they pay allegiance to will be the ones to protect them in times of need. Freeholders can also choose between different bans or arls, and apparently it's not unheard of for people to switch to better deals. Now, what is the difference between a ban and an arl? Good question, but let me tell you what a Terran is first. A Terran is a step above a ban and an arl, and in fact bans and arls swear fealty to them. Although there used to be more Terrans before Callan had united the nation, currently there are only two, Gweren in the south and High Ever in the north. So yes, if you are counting, that makes Loghain and the human warden Kuslin's parents the second most powerful people in Ferelden. Now let's jump back to bans and arls. Before the nation was united, bans came together and a Terran was actually appointed from one of them. An arl has basically the same job as a ban, but they are appointed by the Terrans to see over important areas. So arls are the same as a ban, but technically more prestigious. So at the head of all of this is the king or queen of Ferelden, and they are the ones to make the major decisions in the nation, but the monarch is not in complete control. Ferelden's bans, arls, and Terrans hold a yearly lands meet to discuss major policies in the nation, and they do have the right to overturn the king or queen. As such, this has created a monarch that needs to work towards getting the approval of people below his or her station. Now, just for a fun aside, what about official titles? Here's a nice chart from World of Thedas Volume 1 that I'm just going to steal here. The King and Queen is the title of the official ruler of Ferelden, and Prince or Princess is the children of the King or Queen. Terran or Tierna is one of the two leaders looking over the arls and bans of the nation. Arl or Arlessa is a slightly more important ban who is appointed by the local Tierran or Tierna to control specific points. A ban, a landowner who other landowners have come to an agreement with for protection, trade, or various other needs. A lord or lady is what you would call specific family members of Ferelden nobility. And knights are warriors in service to Ferelden nobles who are considered minor nobles. Culture. Religion. A majority of Ferelden believes in the Chantry, perhaps because Andraste herself was born in Denerim. As Ferelden was once a bunch of different tribes smacked together, hints of older religions are still in the Ferelden Chantry. The Chantry itself has been actually pretty cool about it, stating that members should not condemn non-Chantry religions nor try to remove the iconography, but rather accept it, and know that their maker just stands above their gods. As many of the human tribes had animist roots, meaning that they believed that all objects, places, and creatures had a spirit about them, these symbols still stick around in the Ferelden culture. And this is why Ferelden loves their dogs so much. As wolves were once used as military symbols for strength, and because they ended up fighting in a lot of wars, it became ingrained into their society. So I want to take a minute and talk about dogs in Ferelden culture. So another reason why Ferelden is so into their puppos is that it's all centered around the core Ferelden value of valuing hard work. Mabari, and really all dogs, were used in Ferelden armies, farms, and all parts of Ferelden life. But when did the population of dogs in Ferelden become so large? Apparently, when there was an overabundance of werewolves in Ferelden. I don't really want to get too caught up into this right now, but long story short, there was a huge werewolf scare, and there was a belief that dogs could detect if someone was a werewolf or not, so they became guard dogs. Dress. As with most things Ferelden, think function over fashion. Heavy boots that are comfortable to wear and watertight, thick furs that are warm in cold Ferelden winters, simple clothes with simple colors that are easy to wear and useful for the job. That is what's popular in Ferelden fashion. Food. Described as being hearty and humble, but not really tasting great, Fereldans again strike with this viewpoint of getting the job done over aesthetics. Popular dishes include stews, pies, anything with turnips, ale, and of course, cheese. Relationship with other races. The elves. Although it's common for elves to be treated like garbage all around Thedas, Ferelden elves actually have it better than some places. City elves' lifestyle actually depends on who is in control, but for the most part, they're able to work and keep businesses and are paid for their work, which is unlike other nations. Dalish elves keep to themselves, but as Ferelden is used to tribes living within its borders, as seen with Avar and Chasen people, they're usually left alone unless they anger a local landowner. The dwarves. As the main dwarven city of Orzammar is within Ferelden borders, they have close ties to the dwarves, and many of the Theran bloodline have tried to connect to the dwarven people as ways of gifts and services. The Qunari. Being the country that is literally the farthest away from places that are part of the Qun, there are not many proper Qunari. Now, people belonging to the race we know as Qunari are rare in Ferelden, with some people not even knowing the race exists. While we do see them from time to time, they're mostly seen as hired thugs. And that, dear patrons, is the basics of our beloved Fereldan. I haven't actually decided which nation I should do a video on next, so what do you guys think? Tweet me or leave a comment here with your suggestions. Do you still have lingering questions, proof that I'm wrong? Comments about your own fan theory. Feel free to tweet me at @Gilderthon on Twitter or send a PM to user Gillinan on Reddit. The rest your roll.